got a crazy-ass true story to tell. It could be funny or thrilling or creepy as hell. And when you speak, surely none will make a sound. And the world's going breathless when your true story comes around.
Welcome back to Your Best True Story podcast. FCAT, we're back with another 4 calls. Are you excited?
I am excited. I'm excited to see what people have brought for us today.
Excellent. And just to get you even more excited, it is a response to your call for sleepwalking stories. We've got a couple of those.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. I am so excited to see somebody else's perspective, on getting woken up somewhere odd, or one of their roommates, walking around randomly doing weird stuff or whatever. Yep. I can't wait to hear the story.
And we've got 4 calls total. 2 of them are in the sleepwalking vein. And then we've got another one that involves a late night theft.
Okay.
So somebody waking up from sleep to find a thief.
Ooh.
And then a magician gone wrong story to end with.
All right.
And before we get into playing the calls, I did want to ask people out there in the audience, if you haven't gotten a chance to, if you find anything entertaining about the show at all, please do scroll down on Apple Podcast or Spotify. It's super simple to leave us a 5-star rating. You just scroll down, hit the 5-star rating. That helps promote the show, completely free. Doesn't even interrupt the show for you, but helps us out a lot. So if you get a chance to do that, we would really appreciate it. And then an exciting announcement is, you know who won?
No, who did?
Last month's vote?
I do not.
Who's your guess?
Oh, man.
It's hard to even remember all
it
the
is,
calls.
because these months kind of jam together.
Yeah.
Like I have some stories, but I can't tell you exactly which of the months.
I think you'll be pleased.
Was it the guy with the dead body in his trunk?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
That would have been a good one. But
all right. Let's see. Was it the lady with the book?
No. Unbreakable?
Okay,
Nope,
yep, nope.
Unfortunately, wasn't her.
All right. I don't know then. I don't.
Remember Joanna, the quantum channeler that saw into the Matrix?
Awesome.
Joanna is our winner for April. So we're going to get her the $250 prize money for the month, and then invite her to come on the show.
Yeah,
and
I want to be there for that interview because I got a ton of questions for her.
Yeah. It does seem like she will have some interesting things to talk about. And she had quite a number of people vote for her. I think she's got apparently kind of like a lot of people that are interested in her work. So it'll be interesting to have her on the show and explain more in depth how that whole process works for her. Because it didn't sound like she was exactly like a psychic, but she somehow saw information that other people couldn't see. So maybe that's technically a psychic. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to find out from her.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited. That's great.
And just as a side note, if you do call in your call and let us play it on the air, you will every month have a chance to win that $250 from the audience voting for you. But I do like to point out, you don't have to come on the show to get the $250. So if you want to call in an anonymous story, as long as you give us an email, we will get the $250 to you and invite you on the show, but it's not a requirement. So I don't want people to think they've got to come on the show in order to win the prize money.
Yeah, Jim will cry a little bit because he wants to ask you questions, but it's totally fine if you don't.
There's so much crying going on that who can really tell what I'm crying about?
Yeah, you're always crying about something.
So one other note I had before we started playing the calls is one of the guests from last month, Shiv, who was called in about the spiritual journey. He did point out to me through email that I actually messed up, and I said he was from Nepal. He's actually from India. And so I just wanted to make that correction. I screwed up on that and didn't mean to basically, give somebody the wrong country.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So apologies to Shiv. He is from India, and his call was pretty good too. If you want to go back to the last episode and listen to that. But for this episode, it is going to be heavy, I think, on sleep talk, because the first two calls definitely are in the sleepwalking or what happens when we're asleep vein. So I'm just going to ask you outright, Frey, because I know you kind of have an interest in this. What do you think happens when we go to sleep?
Oh man, I've heard different versions of this. Like I've heard where you, okay, so this might be the dream, right? This, what we're experiencing right now, might be the dream.
Yep.
And you clock out of the dream and you are your organic self in the real world. And we can only stay here until a certain amount of energy runs out, and then we got to recharge to get back into this dream. So the other side might be way more real.
Are we androids? Is there an actual recharging, or you're just talking sort of metaphorical recharging?
I think an expensive energy related sort of you to come down to this frequency takes a lot of force and focus to stay here.
Gotcha.
Maybe so
to trick yourself into believing this reality.
Right. Like imagine, Jim, that you have the, PlayStation 5. You can stay on it for a good amount of time, but at some point you're just like exhausted from playing PlayStation 5 and you got to take a break.
Yeah.
So imagine this being the PlayStation 5. The other you is like, oh my God, I've had so much fun, but wow, I'm exhausted. I got to take a break from this. So you got to clock out for a little while. And then, once you're recharged, refreshed, you're like, oh, let me get back in there and slay that Gorlak,
The interesting thing is that still to this day, we convince ourselves that we know so much in modern society and understand everything, but literally nobody hardly anyone even has a theory really and I'm talking like scientists where there's no consensus on what's going on in sleep. And an interesting fact is, so pretty much everybody does it for a third of their lives. Yet then you have instances where there have been people that have basically been proven to, with really bad insomnia, be awake for years with no apparent detrimental effect. Yet then they have done studies, I think, and this is a horrible study for the rats going through it. But have you ever heard where they did the study where they put rats on spinning plates, basically, so that whenever the rat started to fall asleep, the plate would start to spin again? So basically it was seeing how long they could force the rat to stay awake before it had... And I think it was something, I want to say it was like a week or 10 days or something. And then the rats would start to die.
Yeah.
And when they did the examination of the rat's body, then they found like brain lesions. So
I know that for the normal people, there's only a certain amount of time that you can stay without going to sleep. Now, some people
I was awake one time when I had really bad insomnia, like about 10 years back, with completely stress-related from work, various things. I stayed awake for 6 days.
Yeah.
And it was horrible. And eventually, like, I got enough of what I was stressed about, at least to a point where I could turn my brain off, and then took some sleeping medicine and finally knocked myself out.
Like some people are really good at just like a power nap, like literally like just conk out for 10 or 15 minutes. And that's enough for them to, charge enough to reset and go on. So I don't know what numbers you die at, or most people die at, but, 6 days, Jim?
No, it was crazy. I was thinking I was going to have to go to
Did you not off at all?
No.
You were missing any time?
No, because it was horrible. It was like my brain, and then at a certain point, like I can still get insomnia if I'm really stressed about stuff that I need to get done. but I haven't had like a bout like that in 10 years. But like it was for anybody that suffers from insomnia, they'll probably know the pattern of where there's a certain point where you start to also, if it happens for a couple of nights in a row, then you get stressed about not being able, about it happening again. And it's like a downhill kind of avalanche of your getting like, so then you go to lay down when you're tired and you're just, your brain started, oh man, you got to fall asleep. You got to fall, which wakes you up. And it's just awful.
Oh, that sounds.
Oh no, it was awful.
See, I have never had a problem falling asleep. I have. It's not a problem, but I have experienced like wake up and I'm like standing somewhere. I'm like, damn it, why am I over here?
Yeah,
I fell asleep over there.
And that's crazy that as an adult you still, because
it's random. It's like it hasn't happened in maybe 4 months, but like before that, it probably happened like twice in 1 week.
Wow,
and just crazy. It's just.
And do you know any patterns of? Have you noticed anything like either in your? Is it stress related or is it?
Sometimes I wake up to in the dream, and I'm trying to save my kid from something.
Yeah.
And he's disappearing, and I'm like trying to pull him through something or out of something, and I end up waking myself up because I'm like, I'm like pulling a painting off the wall or something, and then I'm like, oh damn it.
Huh. Now, according to the theory that we had just been discussing, that would mean you're actually in the real world. You're in this battle trying to save your son right now.
Yeah, it could be.
And then you just keep on like coming back here to relax, I guess, or
maybe.
Get away from, yeah.
I mean, that was one version of it. There's another version where you get out of this body, but you're still connected with a silver cord, and then you can go astral project. Which my wife is able to do. Apparently, she's very good at doing that. And the way she describes it is she goes to sleep and then wakes up in somewhere more real.
Wow.
Also,
so she said that the dream world is more real.
Well, when she astral projects, it's like, she says it's very exhausting. So when she wakes up from that night of sleep, it's not, she's not very well rested. So it takes energy apparently to do that.
Yeah.
So, these could be counterintuitive theories, which I'm sure there's probably another. Hopefully somebody called in and gives me another version of this of what's going on.
And let's get to that first call. It is actually going to be, this is more not theories about what the explanation is, but a guy named Pete from California that has called in his pretty remarkable sleep traveling story.
Nice.
That we will play right now. I just call it Sleep Traveler is the story. And Pete, take it away.
Hey, this is Pete from Orange, California. I moved here from Las Vegas about 9 years ago. And a big reason for that move was because there was a sleep steady clinic out here that I still go to. Mom tells me they started when I was 2 or 3. She would come in and I would be standing next to my crib, but I wouldn't be doing anything. I'd just be kind of standing there swaying in place. And that may be where it all started, but it kind of went worse from there. Let's see. I guess the biggest story I got about that, since I know you're looking for sleepwalking stories, it is the time that I woke up in another city. This was before I moved out to Orange, California, when I still lived in Vegas. And I've been on a variety of medications most of my whole life to try to keep me in bed. I've even tried strapping myself down. And I'm married now, and during the weeks and the months where it's real bad, I still sleep in a separate room, padlock from the inside, just for some reason in my sleeping state, I'm unable to crack that code. That's sort of a trick that I use to keep myself and my family safe. Not that they'd be in any danger, but I guess, if I wandered out into traffic, then I'm, losing me or whatever. That wouldn't be safe for them anymore because I wouldn't be able to work. So anyway, a couple years before I moved out to California, I went to bed one night like normal, and it was during a particularly good spell where I hadn't had any incidents. And most of the incidents are pretty minor. You know, I'd wake up in the kitchen, or I'd wake up at the foot of the bed, which freaks my wife out to no end. And I can see why, because it looks like I'm staring at her. Sometimes I talk, sometimes I don't. There's really no pattern other than I get out of bed. And it's different than having a night terror or kicking and screaming in bed. I usually don't make a sound, according to other people. Usually it's really quiet, almost like I'm a ghost walking around. So anyway, back to the main story. One night, everything's fine. I'm getting ready. I go to bed with my wife, and I comment, probably a stupid thing to do. I comment that, hey, things have been going really well on this new medication, and I hadn't woken up in a while. And she said, yeah, that's great. That's great. Let's keep it that way. I said, okay. So would you go to bed? And just like when you're going to sleep and you wake up the next day and it feels like only a few seconds have passed, that's what it felt like to me. Except when I wake up, I'm in my pajamas. Thank goodness I was wearing long pants and a long sleeve shirt because it was freezing. We don't run our heater at night, and it was out in the desert in the winter months. It gets really chilly, but we like the cold. So I was in my full pajamas. But I wake up and I'm at a bus stop in Reno, and I'm looking around, I blank, and most people, I imagine it's disturbing, of course, waking up in a new town, and it only took me a few seconds to grapple with the reality of what had happened. I patted my pajama pockets and I had my wallet with me, which means in my state, I got myself to the bus stop, but to the bus station without driving. Our car was at home. We only had one car. I looked at the bank statement later. I paid for a ride. I called somebody. I paid for a ride to the bus station, excuse me. Got on a bus, went to Reno, all the way to Reno. Sitting on the bus in my pajamas, who knows what the other passengers were thinking, and get off the bus, and I wake up when the sun comes up. So I don't know, there's a lot of time there. There's about 6 or 7 hours that I can't account for if I wandered beyond the bus stop, if, I just rode on the bus back and forth. I don't know what happened. So there wasn't a big freak out moment. I didn't strain, but it was scary, the implications, what that meant for me. Because usually I might wake up in the garden with muddy feet, or in the kitchen with, some eggs cracked on the floor, or in the garage thinking, and these ones are kind of scary because I'm in the garage thinking I'm working on a house project. And fortunately, I've learned over the years to unplug all my equipment, and I haven't so far figured out in my sleep state to how to plug in a power saw at midnight when I'm sleeping. And my wife has even got me into the habit of figuring out a way to secure those cords or putting locks on the plugs, like a child safety locks, which would even help even more. Anyway, so yeah, I woke up in Reno and called my wife because she was freaking out. She didn't know where I was. I had to use a payphone. Fortunately, I knew her number back when you could still find a payphone. And yeah, so I rode the bus home, and after that is when I really started putting locks on my doors, and she's caught me. She's heard the locks rattling, the doorknob rattling a couple times in the middle of the night since then. And she always, she knows how to wake me up with a gentle shake and calling my name, and it's almost like swimming up from underneath the ocean, It's not usually a sudden snap out of it where I'm freaky or I freaked out or I scream. Anyway, so yeah, that's my craziest sleepwalking story. It wasn't dangerous, but I figured it was pretty crazy that I rode a bus while asleep, and I woke up in a new town. Anyway, I hope this makes you all happy. It's a good sleepwalking story. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, so it's crazy to me that, like, how much, and that call made me start doing a little bit of research and I knew that, like, there's a lot of people with Ambien stories that use the sleep drug Ambien doing crazy shit. Yeah. But but yeah, you don't even have to use Ambien, but like, it's amazing the degree that people can function and interact in the world while part of their brain is shut off for sleep and not aware of it and not apparently making conscious decisions. And probably the craziest story I have ever heard of that I just found out about. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. Have you ever heard of a guy named Kenneth Parks?
No.
In 1987, and he's not the only one. There's been like several of these over the decades. It doesn't happen frequently, but in 1987, Kenneth Parks, a 23-year-old Canadian, drove to and killed his mother-in-law in the middle of the night and tried to choke his father-in-law to death, all while sleepwalking. And then he was actually acquitted from the murder, apparently. And then he went on to, he's got like 6 kids, leaves, I believe he's still alive. And there's other cases of people that apparently did some horrific things while they were asleep.
How did his defense prove that he was sleepwalking?
I don't know.
Like,
yeah,
I mean, it sounds like a. What was the first caller's name? The one with
the guy that we just heard was Pete.
Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally relate to Pete, like not to the degree that Pete goes to. I mean, that's amazing, but I can imagine, the angst that you would have if you could actually unlock a door or start a car or buy a ride. Like so that leads me to my other theory, maybe, which I've heard, is that somebody else or some other thing takes over your controller.
Ooh, you're gonna like the next call.
While you're dispatched, somebody else like, ooh, let me hop around in this thing and get some fun in. But maybe he hasn't thought of this, or while he was saying his story, I was sort of trying to think of answers. What about a shock collar, like a dog collar that has a geofence,
that's
element
a great
to it?
Idea.
I would
like if you. Yeah.
With as much, as he's got to prepare for, I would think that maybe that would be...
even like an ankle bracelet that just, gave him a little jolt if he goes out of it.
Like, they have them for dogs.
And alerts his wife, wakes up his wife.
Either that one that...
Pete's on the bus again.
That does an alarm if you get outside of a certain area, if you can set it up for a room, or, maybe, the house, like if and or vibrates and or shocks you, maybe that would be an alternative these days, because you can do some geofencing to yourself. You can do it to your dog, but maybe it might. I would if I was really worried about getting into the garage and turning on power saws and stuff. I would be.
Awesome
I would happily put on a collar and test that out.
But I was thinking about the guy from the 80s that murdered the people while he's asleep, that now has 6 kids and is married. Which is scarier? The fact if he just used that as a defense and got away with murdering, like if you're one of his kids, or the fact that he really did it while he was sleepwalking. As a kid, you're just thinking, man, I hope dad doesn't have one of those sleepwalking murder everyone.
I would think that the court would... impose some type of, hey, all right, well, we're going to let this one slide, or these, one murder and one choking slide, but you got to chain yourself to the bed. Like, that's part of your...
I don't know. Yeah, because he was acquitted. It was like they said, you aren't responsible.
But it doesn't mean like it didn't happen. It means that he wasn't the entity responsible.
Yeah, but I think acquitted, like what I read about the story, I think that just means like they found him not guilty. Have a nice day, sir.
Well, who did it then?
Yeah, well, he did it. But it's almost like the difference between murder and manslaughter. Like where manslaughter is you do it on accident. Basically.
By accident, yeah. But he can't promise the court that it won't happen again.
That's what I mean. What if you're one of his kids?
Well, that's what
I
would have. I would have packed that into the sentence, and if he actually did that to his parents, I would assume he would happily went along with something like that. Like we're going to have a restraint system.
I know, if I was that guy's neighbor, I would constantly be like, asking like, "Hey Ken, how'd you sleep last night?" But like, there'd be no way to not be curious that
he'd have to move.
Ken was okay with
He'd have
his
to move
sleep
and
patterns.
change. I mean, but you can't guarantee it's not going to happen
Yeah,
again.
that's crazy, and reminds me of. Let me read some of, and these are entertaining, and they're this website has 44 Ambien stories that will creep you the F out. I'm just going to read the first 2 or 3.
Yeah. This is a sleep drug that is
Ambien
to enhance sleep?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Of course. So I don't know what company makes it, but of course it knocks you out, but it does horrific things in the process to lots of people. So I think it's been around for probably like 10, 15 years. But, and this is people on Ambien, and I'll put a link to this in the show notes. The first story is I took Ambien for nearly 6 months. I don't know what rumors you've read about Ambien, but the only thing I can imagine that most of them are entirely true. On numerous occasions, I would wake up to find my kitchen in total chaos, baking pans, skillets, knives, cutting boards, etc., as if I'd prepared a 7-course meal, which I had apparently been doing entirely in my sleep with no recollection of it. It wasn't until my girlfriend set up a video camera that I realized what was happening. On 2 occasions, I woke up and my car was parked in either the neighbor's driveway or down the block. I had apparently sleep driven on more than 1 occasion, and Ambien is scary, scary crap. It beat me down like a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest, and apparently made me temporarily insane while I was asleep. Second story, mysterious packages started arriving. I tried Ambien for a while. I would take it about 30 minutes before going to bed and browse around online waiting for it to kick in. I started receiving packages from Amazon that I didn't order. It was all stuff that I liked, so I called around to friends and family trying to figure out who was so kind to send me stuff. And when my credit card bill came, everything was on there. I checked my Amazon account, and apparently I had ordered them myself and don't recall. Last one I'll read is, but there's 44 of these just on this one website. Last one is about a year ago. I was in my college town and trying to get my normal sleep schedule. I took prescribed Ambien about 8 p.m. Minutes after taking it, my roommate walks in and talks me into going to the bar across the street, which sounds like a horrible combination. When I walked in, I was nervous about drinking while under the influence of Ambien. 2 hours later, I'm walking back to the apartment about 8 beers in. I'm not drunk at this point. However, I'm feeling the tiring effects of the Ambien. I proceed to crash in my bed, sleeping like never before. The next morning, I wake up at 6:30, get dressed to go to my 7 a.m. class. When I return at 9, I go straight to my computer to check my schedule for the remainder of the day. I can't help but notice that it smells nasty, like just wash your car and let the soap dry before rinsing off film all over my glossy black Dell computer. As I'm pondering this, flashbacks occur in my mind. I have vague memories of me waking up, going to the nearest light, his computer, and pissing all over the screen, keys, and nightstand. And there's others with like titles of Pirates in My Room, Ground My Teeth Down on Ambien one night, Imaginary Air Race on a Flying Mattress, all kinds of interesting things.
Wow, this Ambien is...
Yeah. This actually, the parallels of this remind me of a story from college that didn't happen to me. I know the guy that it happened to, and I assume like it could have been embellished or exaggerated, but based on his personality and what everyone claimed, he was 2 years kind of older than us in college. So this guy got so blackout drunk. He wasn't like asleep, but he got blackout drunk to the point, and he was kind of a rich kid that was always doing super like ridiculous things with his money.
Yeah.
He woke up in the Bahamas and had no recollection of deciding to go to the Bahamas, buying the ticket, flying there because he just stayed drunk the whole time, apparently. And he said that he literally woke up in the hotel room, had no memory, which we've all been there probably, where you drank enough, where you wake up and you don't have any memory of like why you're crashed on somebody's couch or something like that. Happened to him in a hotel room. He wakes up, something's off. He can't figure it. He had to go down to the front desk and they tell him he's in the Bahamas.
Is he by himself?
Yeah. He apparently just decided as he was wasted to go to the Bahamas.
Sweet.
Yeah. It's kind of a badass
thing,
it's kind of a badass drunk story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My.
Well, let's play the next call that will get a little bit more into the explanation of potentially what's happening. And this is a guy named Roger that has some pretty definite opinions on what happens when you're sleepwalking. So, Roger, he didn't give his location, but I'm just calling this call sleep possession.
Ooh.
Hey, this is Roger. First of all, sleepwalking ain't real. It's not a real thing. I know you're looking for calls about sleepwalking, but I just want to be educated here. I want to call and inform you what's really going on with people who would think of sleepwalking, because that's what I thought I was doing for a long time too, because that's all the medical community knows what to call it, because they're not interested in the so-called pseudoscience. They're not interested in looking beyond what's in the textbooks, looking for the real reasons why people get up in the middle of the night and cruise around and do strange things, waking up in weird places or trying to drive somewhere in the car. But I'm here to tell you why that happens. And I don't know what it really is, but I have some ideas that are way more obvious to the curious mind than the doctors who spend all their time with the noses buried in textbooks. There is such a thing as the afterlife. There is such a thing as purgatory, and some people get stuck there. Their souls or their minds or their energies get stuck there, and every once in a while, and I believe in reincarnation too, and it might be you. You might be the one stuck there. And at the same time, you might be the one living this life as another person, connected to this other thing that's out there, this energy that can't yet pass on until you do what you have to do. And I'm not sure if it's unfinished business or if there's some other thing that keeps you connected. Maybe you don't want to leave. Maybe you like it here on us. I don't know. I don't know what the tether is, but there's obviously a tether that keeps this other energy from moving on. That's part of you, or you become something else. And how that happens is when you fall asleep and your brain switches into that different mode of subconsciousness, or other consciousness as it's sometimes called, it opens itself up to something else. Something else can come in or lay itself on top of your brain. I like to think of it like a layer that kind of settles down, or like a sheet that settles down over your brain while you're sleeping and wraps it up and puts an extra consciousness on it that takes over and becomes the prime consciousness. So when you catch your spouse or your son or daughter waking up in the middle of the night, not waking up, but walking in the middle of the night, standing in front of the refrigerator, staring at the rocky road that's in the freezer, that's not them. That's something else that loved Rocky Road in a previous life. Or maybe it was you, who was a farmer in the 1900s, and you had ice cream one time at a county fair, and that was all you had. And now that's your tether keeping you locked to this realm, to the physical realm, from wherever else you are before you can move on. And so whether they're drifting around and choosing people, or whether there's some kind of connection from your brain to this other thing, they settle down, they go into you at night, and that makes you wake up, and you end up in your garden because you were a gardener and you love flowers, and this is your chance to relive that past experience. Or you're trying to break into the rocky road at 2 a.m., or you're in front of the TV because you loved going to the movies as a kid and you haven't been able to do that since you died doing whatever in your previous life, and now you're just some kind of corporeal, free-floating, phantasm or whatever. So that's what's happening. It's not you at all. Something's not triggering you. And I want to dispel this misinformation that if something in your brain, it's not. If you talk to anybody who has experience with that realm beyond our own, whether it's ghosts or your souls or free-floating energies or whatever it is, and I can't, just like people can't prove that there's a God and not a God, I can't prove what it is, but I know it's not your own brain. I've had 6 EKG, I've had 6 studies done on my brain while I was sleeping and while I was sleepwalking, and it's like a switch. I become something else when these events occur. My brain patterns shift severely into the realm of, I'm not the same person anymore. They can't prove that it's me walking around in this room of the sleep study. I do things that I never would do in real life. I've picked up pen and paper and drawn beautiful pictures, and I'm a horrible drawer. I can't even draw a stick figure. I'm terrible at it. But there are multiple occurrences like that where I have expressed skills from somewhere else that I don't personally possess on a daily basis, that I've tried to recreate. If you ever see people who are extremely susceptible to hypnotism, I guarantee you that they're also susceptible to these nighttime occurrences, whatever you want to label them, phantasmagorical possessions for whatever. But that sounds dangerous, and it's not. These are usually very harmless, and if anything, it might be beneficial to these spirits or to this energy that wants to get ice cream in the middle of a night, or wants to pull the weeds in the garden just so they can feel the soil between your fingers. Anyway, I hope this enlightens somebody. I hope they maybe can get an idea that you're not yourself, and that there's something else going on here, and that might lead to even more questions, because there's a ton of interesting stuff out there, and I hope you can discover it. Okay, thanks for your time.
So that goes along right to what you were just saying.
Yeah, somebody picking up something else, picking up the controller and moving around.
And I never actually heard of that concept before, but I mean, it sounds like
it's very viable.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot say, because I wake up at the end, like something, like if it's either I bumped into something, or like one time, where I'm standing on the bed, seeing a cat in the fan, and I'm reaching up to get it, and, start whacking my hands because the fan's spinning around, and then I'm like, what am I doing up here? But so I wake up at the end part, but, not real. I don't know how we got there. I don't, or, sometimes my wife will be yelling at me, and I'm like annoyed because I'm trying to do whatever I'm trying to do. Yeah. So I'm sort of flowing into it, getting yelled at and getting annoyed at the same time of trying to explain, hey, I'm trying to do X, Y, or Z.
Trying to get this cat.
Let me get this thing. Yeah. Now's not the time to yell at me. Don't you understand that he's about to fall into the lava? Like, can't you just help me with this? So, I get that. But so the interesting part is that I've watched my dogs. And you ever catch your dog sleep dreaming? Yeah. Not walking per se, but they're chasing something.
Yeah, and I used to fuck with my black lab, like when he gets where you can see he's dreaming and having an intense dream, and then you do something like just use your fingers to nip at his paw in the dream, so it encourages the interaction.
There's something, they're having either a movie run through their head, or something's happening to them, you know, and that I've actually seen that where they start barking and then they start looking like they're running, like all four of their legs are going.
They do that a lot.
And then you could see it end, and then they just go lights out again.
Yeah.
So it's really an interesting subject.
And it does get super fascinating, when you think about, since nobody really understands what's going on with sleep anyway, and then it does have all these connections, like you're even saying with your wife, but then the stories of which I dream vividly, and almost every night dream vividly, but I wouldn't say it's weird. It's one step below lucid dreaming, I guess, because it's vivid. I can remember it. It seems very real, no matter how absurd the scenario is. But as soon as I have any inkling I'm dreaming, I drop out of it. I wake up. Like I never am consciously aware I'm dreaming and able to control things like people say when they're lucid dreaming, I believe, or astral traveling. So that to me is fascinating, that potential to actually be conscious in that world.
Wake up in
and do things.
In the dream, I'm super jealous of her because I, on the other hand, don't get to remember a lot of my dreams, like, at all. So I have random ones where I'll wake up in the morning, like, halfway through one, and it'll be there for a fleeting, minute or two. But, like, she gives me these intense, like, whole stories of places that she's gone and done and stuff, and I'm so jealous that this is like it's like you get to go on vacation at night, and I'm like,
well, I would say though, like, it is like, which I think you said she alluded to with whatever she experiences, like me, it is not restful sleep when I'm dreaming. It's way more restful to have non-dream sleep, but the interesting thing is about the vivid dreams, though, and this is sort of the theory I've come up with, is there is some beneficial, almost like emotional effect from it. Like, because vivid dreams, lots of times, you can't have negative ones, but like lots of times, I don't have a lot of nightmares per se. I either have where they're kind of neutral, or like it's like I'm wrestling with the same emotion that I was wrestling with a problem earlier in the day. Like if I was stressed about getting something done, then I could feel the same stress in the dream, although be incredibly different context. So it'll be a context that doesn't relate to that same scenario, but it'll be the same emotion. And then potentially in the dream, it almost feels like I'm trying to work that out where I can release the emotion or something. So it's like I'll lots of times wake up from those vivid dreams. I'll be actually a sense of like relief of like, oh, okay, even though I didn't, get that work related thing done, my brain still thinks like, yeah, but you danced with the hippopotamus effectively in the dream. And so now you can feel good about yourself.
Yeah, you saying that reminds me of one dream that I did sort of remember, and it was kind of weird because I came up with a new language that worked both forwards and backwards.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Forwards and backwards somehow, and I had it all down pat for about 5 minutes after I woke up, and I'm like, that's brilliant. I'm like, what is that? And like,
I was super high once, and I figured out, I'm pretty sure, all the secret, like a theory of everything. And then once I came down, like I couldn't explain it and piece it all together. But I am certain while I was super high, I did figure it out.
I wasn't high, I wasn't drunk, wasn't anything. It was just one of those random weird ones where I did come out of sleep with something that I was like, oh, that is really cool.
But were you able to either write it down or connect it enough where you could remember, like where you could analyze it from your logical waking state and use any of it?
Not really.
That's the tricky thing. Yeah.
And I was all I knew is that it was not poetry, but it was sort of kind of poetry, but it worked in its way, whatever way it was working. And I don't think it was this language. The format was both backwards and forwards. Like it transmitted information, and it wasn't in a direction that you had. It was very strange. Like, that
sounds like, I've forgotten the name of it. I'm going to screw up these names if I try to, John Dee is like the mystic from, I want to say he was from the 1600s, maybe 70. He was actually, and he was a real living guy that was actually one of the Queen of England's like main advisors.
I don't know who John Dee is.
He was the guy, I think it was him, that claimed to be able to channel and communicate with angels. And there was a whole angel language that he was given information to that I think you can actually like look up on, like, I think it's like nobody knows exactly how it works, but like it's linguists actually believe it is a real language, whether it's whether it's angels or he just came up with it on his own. But like I believe that linguists have like determined like it looks like a real language.
Wow.
The patterns and usage and stuff. But I could, I don't know. I could be completely wrong in the way I'm remembering that. Maybe that was a dream I had about a guy named John D.
He sounds credible.
Yeah.
I mean, from John, the name sounds more of a modern name than a 1600s name. But besides that, he sounds credible.
It was John D. And there was another guy that was around the same time who, they were both like, really bizarre character, like historical character. Like, have you ever heard of, I am fascinated by like Rasputin? Have you ever
heard of him? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait, we'll save that for another show.
Okay.
Because it's not related at all.
Right.
But Rasputin's story in life is bonkers. Like, in the implications of what he is fascinating. But we won't get into Rasputin for this episode, because we should probably move on to our third call, which is shifting gears. We're going to be leaving a lot of the sleep theme stuff behind to go to, the story does occur at night, I believe, while Rob, the guy that called in, was asleep, or maybe is about to fall asleep. But Rob is actually the host of a similar name show to ours, which, in the weird way the universe works, Rob is the host of a show called Your Most Interesting Story, which started almost at the exact same time Your Best True Story started. And I've listened to a couple episodes of Rob's show, and I definitely recommend people check it out. It is, it's sort of like the grown-up version of this show, I would say.
Okay.
What he does is like the envision I have with the monthly interviews we do from the story episodes is kind of the format of his entire show, where it's just he's taking one interesting person, hearing their true stories, and kind of delving deeper into it as he interviews them. But he does like a lot of research on the topic, and so
yeah,
whereas,
that sounds good.
Yeah, I'm encouraging like people with the werewolf stories to call in, and so he tends to deal with more just more sort of very grounded stories that are very interesting. Like the one that I listened to was a little bit ago was about a guy that was doing business from America, was doing business in Russia right after the fall of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And that had some pretty damn interesting stories, like having to deal with the mafia over there and various...
A lot of different variables.
Yeah, yep. So definitely we're going to play Rob's story, and then I'm also going to link in the show notes to his show as well, and encourage you to check it out because it is definitely good. And here is Rob, who is the host of Your Most Interesting Story, about one of his most interesting stories from his life.
My best true story happened about 4 years ago. My wife, our kid, and I live in a residential area of San Jose, California, and we have security cameras installed on the outside of our house. We decided to get them installed after seeing a lot of burglary-type crimes reported on Nextdoor. And generally, when these cameras would fire off, we'd see cats, we'd see raccoons, we'd occasionally see an opossum. So pretty much just the suburban wildlife in our backyard or running across our lawn. There was one instance where I thought we had caught a coyote eating from a fig tree that spills over into our yard from the neighbor's yard. My wife did not believe it to be a coyote. In any event, at this time, like I said, about 4 years ago, our kid was younger and would sometimes have trouble sleeping. And so when that would happen, we'd allow them to sleep in our bed with my wife, and then I would sleep in theirs, as I've never really had trouble falling asleep, and I don't really sleep that much. I stay up pretty late as a rule. Related to this story, earlier that year, I had splurged, after my wife convinced me to do so, on a carbon-framed mountain bike. And even though I ride on streets, I use a mountain bike. I guess I like to have options. And although my wife probably does not agree, I consider myself to be an exceptionally easygoing person. I would be probably least likely to get into any kind of confrontation. I've never been in a physical fight, and I've lived for several decades trying to be a pacifist for the most part. So anyway, it's a hot San Jose night in September of 2020, and my wife and kid are asleep in the primary bedroom, and I'm in my kid's room snuggled under a pink comforter, and that bedroom is on the front side of our house. I've got my phone, which has the security app installed on it, on the bookshelf next to me, and I'm woken up by hearing the security app alert going off. And so I'm assuming it's animal, raccoon or a possum, or maybe I'll finally have proof of a coyote. So I sleepily pick it up and look at it, and I see a person on my porch, and my first thought is, oh, maybe it's an early UPS delivery. They do that sometimes around here. And then all of a sudden I notice that the person is looking through my kitchen window, and now they're about to go through the side gate, which leads to the patio on the side of our house. So, obviously, without clearly thinking things through, I jump out of bed, all 6'3" of me, skinny framed and all, and I go running down the hallway to the front door. I throw open the front door, I push through the screen door onto the front porch, and I see the guy wheeling my recently purchased, very expensive carbon frame bike out of my side gate. And I startled him, obviously, this tall, angry-looking guy in his underwear, because I'm only wearing a t-shirt and underwear, which are my pajamas of choice. He's got it balanced up on its back wheel, like I've seen the people at the bike shop do when they're maneuvering through tight spaces. And then he says, "Oh shit." And so he throws my bike aside, and he runs off the porch through the little planted area we have toward the front of the house, and then starts running toward the street. So I'm in my boxer shorts and t-shirt, and I go running after him. And I'm looking like, I know this because I've seen the security footage, like a gangly, pissed-off praying mantis. And I'm yelling at the guy, and I'm telling him to get the hell out of here and all that stuff. I'm not sure what I was saying, but most of it was swear words. He makes it halfway down our driveway, and he turns around. And I'm thinking that he must have at that point realized that he'd left his bike, which was leaning against my car, which was closer to the front of the house. He turns around. He's on one side of my car, and I'm on the other, and he says, "I've got a gun in my backpack, and I'll fucking shoot you." So then tough guy me responds, "Don't shoot me, man. Just get the fuck out of here." And I clearly recall myself pointing sternly down the driveway toward the street to accentuate my point. I kind of feel it was sort of biblical looking, right? Or maybe Grim Reaper-y, although given my outfit, probably not. So then I angrily and purposefully just turn on my heel. I march back to find my bike that's lying off the side of the porch amid rocks and our low-growing plants, pick it up and wheel it back into my side drive without looking back at all. I also still have my phone in my hand at this point, although I'm not sure why. I guess maybe I was going to use it as a weapon. I don't know. But based on the security footage, he then walks back, grabs his bike, and then walks slowly down our driveway and leaves, thankfully. So as I'm coming back out to the porch from the side yard, I'm closing the gate, and I see my wife and kid at the front door. They just come out and they say, "What's going on?" So I say, "Get back inside." And since I didn't provide a good enough reason at that point, they stayed outside until I actually did convince them that it made the most sense for all of us to go back inside, close the door, and call 911, which is what we did. So the San Jose police arrive a couple hours later. I'm assuming it's because there was no longer a crime in progress when I called it in. And it was probably a little past daybreak when they finally arrived. They politely watched my recorded videos on my laptop because I had the security cameras, so why not? One of the cops that was there were two of them, one said that this had actually been a problem and that the folks who steal the bikes usually are from the homeless encampments that are relatively nearby, and they sell them for drug money. The other one told me, obviously, after watching my infuriated insect of a video, not to go down to the encampment and confront them, and I told him that he had nothing to worry about. Of note, my 60-pound dog did not stir or bark this entire time, as far as I know. We do crate her, but I would have expected more from her. A good friend of mine shared the video of the incident with his girlfriend, and her response was, "Rob is very brave." I would probably rephrase it as Rob is very stupid. But the good news is I still have my bike and I wasn't shot. And that's the end of my best true story. I'll share links to the incident, which shows both the burglar, my bike, and me. Also, just want to say I love what you guys are doing with the podcast. I've got a feeling you're going to have a lot of success, and I'm looking forward to your next episode. Thank you, and take care.
And I'll put a link in to the video that Rob sent.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so if you want to check Rob out, confronting the bike thief, and and definitely check out his show, Your Most Interesting Story. It definitely is good and good listening. And Freddie, I was going to ask, does this, have you ever been robbed, broken into, participated in a crime of any kind that you'd like to share?
I had my car broken into back 20 years ago. It was when we were all young, and one time came out and I'm like, hey, my bumper's missing, because I had like a Samurai, and they took the bumper, they took the front grill guard and the lights that I had on it, and then they took the stereo out, just the normal stuff.
Yeah.
That's the only time I've gotten anything broken into. But I can imagine the adrenaline is just taking over at that point with him. With him chasing him down, because, here in Florida, you have your castle doctrine and your stand your ground castle doctrine. So you can, if somebody's breaking into your house and you have a fear of bodily harm or death, you can use that to, if you have a weapon, you can discharge your weapon to save yourself or your family. But you can't go chasing somebody down. It's if it was the Wild West, it makes sense totally.
Yeah.
In this day and age,
well, especially in California.
Oh my!
In California, Rob probably got sued for misgendering the bike thief as he yelled at him.
He could have, there could have been a lot of different outcomes of that, like just mental anguish. The homeless guy might have him because he yelled at him.
Yeah,
it's stuff. So, but I totally can understand in his. Being in his shoes, you get the adrenaline, it just takes over, and so kudos for, you get a punch on your man card. Yeah, for sure. For me.
Yeah, definitely a good call, especially if the wife is awake.
Oh yeah.
And you gotta stand your ground. Otherwise, you'll definitely lose some points on the man card.
Yeah, that's it. Because it's tough. Like, what do? Do you just let somebody take your bike? Maybe some people would say, yeah, it's just a bike. Your homeowner's insurance will cover it. You got it on video. Yeah. What are you doing? But then at the same time, it's like there's some guy taking your bike. Yeah, and you're there. What are you going to do?
And I think there is a principle. It's just a good thing to do to not get, because to say if you let somebody steal your bike theoretically that, I think that would mess with your confidence and even if it seems like it's the more logical call or something. Oh, I don't want to get into a violent situation, or I don't want to let him take the bike and I'll replace it. But then I would think that would have to eat at you.
Sure.
Sort of why didn't I make a stand?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a good idea to run through these scenarios in your head while you're calm and nothing is happening, and
And if you have insomnia, that's exactly what you can do. You can just lay there all night and run through various scenarios like that and plan out
what should you do? The pros and cons of each of your actions. Yeah. He could have stayed in the house, not put himself in danger, protected the entries, and lost the bike.
Yeah.
One of the versions, he could have been, well, not in California. See, that's the thing. Because there's one sound that seems to be everybody knows, and that's the sound of the shotgun getting ready. You click, click.
Yeah.
That would be intimidating. Drop the bike, get lost. Kind of. But over there, I just yeah, there's a lot of extra ingredients, that you
extra
gotta
things
take
to
into account.
consider. Yeah.
Yeah.
That the funny thing is what this made me remember. I've never had a bike stolen, but in college, I think it was, or shortly after college, I had a mountain bike, and I was used to lock it up in front of this coffee shop, with one of the chain locks.
Yeah.
Before I go into the coffee shop and hang out for a while.
Yeah.
And it must have been somebody that saw me do it regularly. And I got to admit, it was kind of hysterical. They stole the chain lock. They didn't steal my bike.
They're just
It was just
messing with you.
Yeah, it was just to like, you douche, stop worrying. Like I could take your bike if I wanted to. And that was exactly, I was just like, okay, I'm taking this too serious. I'm just gonna, and I actually, when I saw it, that the lock had been stolen, I actually started laughing. I was like, okay, I get the point.
It does remind me of, there's videos on the internet where people put a bike, like a bait bike, and then they have
I remember seeing
the
that
steel cable, right? And it gives them a good
Those
running
are
start.
hysterical.
Yeah, and usually downhill. So they're like, get on the bike. They'll look around, like, oh yeah, I'm good. And they start pedaling away, and meanwhile, the tension just is unwrapping, and then bam, over the handlebars. And then there's different version of it where like immediately when they get in the seat, and I don't know how you don't get sued for this.
Yeah.
It's like there's like a hole in the seat drops down with springs, and there's like the only thing there's a pipe.
Yeah.
Like it looks really.
That's going almost going too far where you might actually hurt
There's
somebody.
other ones with electricity too.
Yeah.
Like you just get
geez.
electrocuted.
Yeah.
But I think the funniest ones are the ones with the steel cable because man. But, don't be also just stealing people's stuff.
There was how when you're first dating somebody and you start to find out, like you're exchanging stories and information about your past and everything. There was a girl that I was dating that had been hanging out for a few weeks, and she's opening up more and more. And I think we were telling each other stories about like, the worst things we'd done or something like that. And I think as far as stealing, the only thing I've ever really stolen that I remember was on a dare stealing like a lawn chair from like a Walmart or something, just with buddies. We were going out to a beach to sit there and drink and everything and play football and stuff. And like somehow it turned into a big thing of a dare. And so I stole the lawn chair, ran out of the Walmart with it. But like I wasn't real. That was just the dare.
Yeah.
But anyway, this chick is opening up to me, and I remember the moment when I just like shifted her into an entirely different category when she explains, yeah, her and her sister used to go around and break into cars when they were in high school and steal the stereos. And I'm just thinking, that's not cool. That's just actually you're a criminal. That's not a funny story. You're a dirtbag.
Did you clutch your purse like closer at that moment?
Yeah. And she did turn out to be as shady as that would dictate going forward.
Hey, it's you got some. You got some good information as far as, whether you want to continue on with that.
So now moving on from crime. Well, this is a segue into still involving crime. Well, the first thing I'm going to ask you, Freddie, is have you ever heard of magician crime?
I don't trust magicians.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't at all. Shifty bastards. But so the next story that we've got is about a magician, which is kind of a little bit, I'll just have to play it. Funny story, but it got me looking into interesting stories about magicians. And
magicians are right underneath clowns for me.
Yeah, well, yeah. And so I found two interesting stories. As just recently in England, I think it was last year, either at the start of this year, there's apparently a well-known hypnotist that was hypnotizing girls and stealing their password information somehow to get nude photos of them that he would then sell. So that if you ever thought hypnotists were people to trust, that's just
I would think that there would be a plethora of women these days who'll just give you the nude photos.
yeah. And especially with AI, like you don't even need women.
Hey, that's
you just,
true.
Yeah, it's just you could make a nude photo. But so that was one story I found. But then an even funnier story I found on the internet from a guy named Matthew Collins. Posted this story about magic, criminals trying to use magic in the world, and I'll just read it. As for real magic, let me answer yes and tell you a very old case that you may find amusing. On March 18th, 1582, two Spaniards decided to copy the famous story of Gyges, king of Lydia, which was some stories told by Plato that I'm actually not familiar with. But the two Spaniards' intent was to kill the Prince of Orange, which is apparently where they lived in Spain, using magic and specifically the power of invisibility. So two Spaniards think they're going to kill the ruling monarch by, using a spell of invisibility to get close to him. So they realize as they're researching it, though, that due to the spell only making the body invisible, the magician, in order to not be seen, would have to remove all of his clothing. And they could only make one of them invisible at a time, by the way. So they start to do the ritual, and one of the aspects was they put on a magic ring that was like laced with mercury and a certain stone. And then the one that was going to do it stripped down naked, so he only had the ring on. And he apparently he forgot to check the mirror to see if he was actually invisible or not.
Wow.
And I don't understand if his buddy somehow thought that he could still see him, but no one else could. Somehow they decided he was invisible, though. And he walked to the palace, and he walks up to the guards of the palace, and apparently they are so shocked that they just watch him walk past. So the guy, this in his brain, confirms that he's invisible.
Yeah,
he made it far into the palace before the guards eventually tackled him and arrested him and put him to death or something. But that was it. The king or the prince actually didn't even have him executed because he found it all so damn amusing that the guy thought he was invisible, that he just basically kind of thought he was an idiot.
There is a little bit of truth in the method to madness what they're using. Like, I've seen videos where the calmer and the more kind of
you act like you know what you're doing.
Yeah, there's there's like festivals and stuff, like, or movie theaters or something like that. So you put on a vest like a worker, like you're supposed to be there, and you carry a ladder.
I used to do that with a clipboard in high school. I would go, because I went to a very big high school. There were like 1,500 people. Yeah. And there were people that worked, kids that had a class where they would be office assistants to the main office. And they used a clipboard to go around and take attendance off of the individual classrooms. And they would sometimes call people out. I never had worked for the office, but I just realized if I borrowed their clipboard or paid them $5, I could take their clipboard and go to any class and call somebody out.
Right.
So we would use that all the time to go to lunch.
Or just, hourly. They're just like, whatever. All right. And so because in their mind, they're like, why would anybody have a ladder if they weren't, these two guys have a ladder. They're obviously here to fix something, and if you just seem official and seem unworried about it, you're like, hey, we're just here to check on the air ducts.
Props.
Yeah. Oh, where's the managers around that side? Okay, don't worry. We've talked to them before. And they just, walk through like they own the place, and it works.
Yeah,
it's like psychology.
Amazing how much stuff like that works.
I don't think they would have gotten very far naked, though.
No, I think that was the case where they were just completely baffled as to why a naked man was calmly walking past them, that they didn't react quick enough. They were just probably like, what in the fuck is this guy doing?
Yeah.
And yeah, too confused. So, well, it's not actually magic crime that is our last story, but that was the closest or the best magic information I could find for the lead in to this call. And this last call we're going to play does involve a magician called Derek the Dazzler.
Ooh.
And the person calling it in is apparently Derek's cousin. And this is an amusing little story to end on.
All right.
So here is the tale of Derek the Dazzler.
I'm going to tell you a story about my dumbass cousin Derek. And he was my Uncle Eddie's son, the youngest of 3 boys, and he was kind of like a complete screw up for the most part. They're kind of a wealthy family, and Derek had drank his way out of college. Then he had basically got a bunch of ridiculous part-time jobs that he either quit or got fired from for several years. Then he started to get in his head that he was an entrepreneur and started a bunch of badly thought out companies. I can't even remember. One of them was like a dog walking company that they like clothed the dogs while they walk them. Like, so it was just like, and this was in the South, so all the dogs were hot as shit. Like, it didn't even make any sense. And then the last one he did was some sort of crypto company that I think just meant that he like stayed in Uncle Eddie's basement and watched porn all day, and eventually lost like 50 grand of my uncle's money. And so anyway, I mean, he was always involved in like pyramid scams, not as the one smart enough to even think of the pyramid scam, but as the guy getting scammed. So eventually, when he was in like his mid to late 20s, somehow he got the idea that he was going to become a magician, and that once he perfected it, then he would put it on social media and become this great illusionist, I guess is what he called it. Not even a magician, an illusionist. And of all the stupid ass names, he called himself Derek the Dazzler. And literally you got a picture that Derek was probably about 6'2", weighed about 150 pounds. So this gangly Ichabod Crane looking motherfucker with a huge Adam's apple just to begin with. But then on top of that, he's wearing like a one-piece leotard with sparkles on it, like a top hat that's got sparkles, and he lots of times would use sparklers in his show, and that was supposed to be Derek the Dazzler. And he, I think, only had one actual paying gig that he ever did, where it was like a kid's birthday party, and I don't know exactly what happened, but he tried the pulling the rabbit out of the hat thing, and I think the rabbit bit one of the kids in the eyeball or something like that. So he only got paid like $75 to show up to the kid's birthday party, and then ended up having to pay like $4,000 in medical bills so the kid's parents didn't sue him. Anyway, this is just a long way to say that Derek was a royal idiot horse's ass. And so my Uncle Eddie was having a 60th birthday party. And as I mentioned, they're kind of a wealthy family. And so we had a bunch of people there, and a really nice party, middle of the afternoon, probably like 50 people there. And we knew that Derek was going to try to do his some sort of magic trick. And he had, in honor of Uncle Eddie's birthday, and we were all like, oh God, this is going to be embarrassing as shit, but let Derek do it, get it over with whenever he wants to, blah, blah, blah. So he had recently been trying to perfect escaping from things sort of like Harry Houdini, I think was the angle he was going for. And so one time I do remember him, he popped out of a washing machine as we were passing by, and that was actually kind of impressive because, again, he was like 6'2" and really tall and lanky, and he had somehow wedged himself down into the washing machine so that when we passed by, he like popped up and had sparklers going. And we're like, how in the hell did you fit in that washing machine? Anyway, for Uncle Eddie's birthday, though, we don't know what it's going to be, but we all, at a certain point in the afternoon, notice there's cards set out with calligraphy on it that says, Derek the Dazzler request your presence in the drawing room. And so I could see Uncle Eddie took a shot of whiskey prior to going to the drawing room, but all of us that were around and cared enough to experience this excruciating event go to the drawing room, which was like a big kind of sitting room, living room, another word for it, that was kind of my uncle's main place that you like to hang out. He had a bunch of hunting trophies, like animal heads up on the wall, like some trophy case from when he played sports, and then gun safe, like long cylindrical, or not cylindrical, rectangular, tall gun safe in one corner, and some other things like bows mounted on the walls and stuff like that. And so we all sit around at the door waiting for, we're presuming, Derek the Dazzler to pop into the living room and start his magic show. Well, we sit there for 10 minutes, nothing happens. We sit there for another 10 minutes, and we all start sort of wondering and getting a little concerned and looking at each other, and like Uncle Eddie eventually looks at me, says, do you have any idea where he is or what he is doing? And that's when I say, I don't know, maybe he's doing one of his hiding tricks and we're supposed to find him. And that's about the same time when we all start just kind of reflexively looking around the living room, and we all of a sudden, it seems like it hits all of us at the same time. We look at the gun safe, the tall rectangular gun safe, and without saying a word, Uncle Eddie jumps up off of the couch, runs to the gun safe, and we're all thinking, holy fuck, that dumb motherfucker. And Uncle Eddie spins the dial to put his combination lock numbers into it to open up the safe. And when he opens up the safe, Derek the Dazzler is in there, dead as a doornail. I don't know how long he had been in there. He had a couple burnout sparklers in his hand. He had the top hat on, crooked and smushed as he was suffocating. He had a couple of high-heeled boots on with, sparkles on them as well. And so, not to make fun of the dead or anything, or, it did, but good Lord, he was an idiot. And he died being stuck in that damn safe. And the worst part of it all was when they took his hat off. The combination to the safe was written on a note inside his hat. But the dumb fucker didn't realize that that wouldn't work from inside the safe, apparently. Anyway, long story short, my uncle had a couple of other sons that were not dumbasses that turned out very well. So I think my Uncle Eddie's fine, and in all honesty, he might actually be kind of relieved. Anyway, that's the story.
There it is, Freddie. The tale of Derek the Dazzler. We lost him too early, I think.
Doing what he loved, though.
That's true. That is true.
The sparklers in the safe that made this situation so much worse because you're burning up the oxygen that's in the safe.
That's a case of a man having too much passion for his.
He's so sparkly.
Yeah, he was just I think he needed a mentor.
I think he needed a psychologist. He doesn't make me want or to like magicians anymore. I think I feel the same, if not even more angry towards magicians.
It is a bizarre career choice. For anyone that chooses to be it, you got to wonder why. What's going on?
Yeah, the hypnotist now, that's kind of cool because I've been to one of those shows and, some of the stuff that they can do with people that supposedly say they can't be hypnotized, they snap them out of it and be like, see, I told you couldn't hypnotize me. And they're like, snap, elephant.
Clucking
and then
like
you're
a
like,
chicken
they're walking around with their trunk, hanging out and just like, wow. And
see, I wonder if that is staged. Like,
no,
I'm
because
sure it
it's
is
not.
sometimes.
It's not because at college we had a guy come. So the people up on stage were people that I knew in real life, and they're not part of the show. Like,
really?
Yeah, because they had to they did a thing at the beginning of the show, and they see who they could get hypnotized. Like, he would hypnotize the entire audience.
Yeah.
And only some people were super susceptible to being hypnotized. So those people were the ones that couldn't get their hands apart. Like, they're like, hey, if you, wake up now, if you can't get your hands apart, come on up.
Yeah.
So there were people that he had already hypnotized. Now they couldn't get their hands apart. Now they're up on stage, and then he would just add a couple more things. They're like, all right, when when I say sleep, you're going to go into the most relaxing area. You're going to feel so refreshed, and then sleep, 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 and one after another, he'd put them all to sleep. And then so he'd go into, and it was a comedy show and a hypnotist show at the same time.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that the people weren't staged. Like, these weren't just random people that you didn't know. These were random people that I did know.
That sounds like a whole level higher than what Derek the Dazzler had accomplished.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Danny McBride is what I think he looked like.
Danny McBride was... Who is Danny McBride?
You're going to have to Google Danny McBride. But he was in, let's see, what he's got the mullet, curly hair.
Oh, he was Eastbound and Down?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
That is what I picture him looking like.
Yeah.
Like, just in my head when I'm listening to the story about.
Well, that would
Derek,
be if that dude popped out of a washing machine. That would be pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah, right. But I don't know why.
He was halfway there. Yeah, he was halfway to having a good act.
I don't know why he popped into my head, but he just did. So the rest of the story that I was being told, I was picturing it was Danny McBride trying to do these tricks.
Well, somebody that looks like that would definitely suffocate in a gun safe. Definitely not enough room.
Yeah, but no for magicians on me.
Yeah. Well, I think that should wrap it up. Those are all of our calls from today. And Freddie, you were so good with the putting the call out for sleepwalking stories. How about you give another suggestion out there to see if your magic works again?
I'm trying to. Well, we have. Hopefully, we get the quantum lady to come on.
Yeah,
those are some areas I want some people to have some.
Yeah,
I want to delve deeper into that. But as far as stories, I just got stuck on my boat this morning. Like I was out with the family on the boat, and the motor just stopped, and then I had to use the anchor as sort of a claw for about an hour to try and move me. Luckily, I was close to a boat launch, but it was early enough in the morning. There wasn't enough boats coming and going. So it took me about an hour and a half to make it maybe 200 yards closer to the boat ramps, just throwing it.
Sounds exhausting.
Throwing it and then pulling it in, hoping it clicks into the ground, and then you pick it up and then hurl it out again. And then, finally a boat did come and towed me the rest of the way to the boat launch. But, maybe some boating stories. Maybe some people who've gotten stuck or done, seen some crazy jet ski action where they run into each other, or some, have capsized outside in the ocean and have to survive.
Ooh, that would be good.
On the underside of a boat.
That got me excited. Yeah.
Or have you been on a cruise ship where some idiot jumps off of the boat and the cruise ship had to turn around the whole time,
Or if there is a werewolf in any of those scenarios, like you're stuck on a cruise ship with a werewolf.
Yeah, I got some good cruise ship stories too. So any good cruise ship stories, because I got a couple good cruise ship stories.
Nice. Well, we'll put that out in the ether. Hopefully someone will answer your call for boating water stories. And just as a reminder, if you found anything entertaining about the show at all, we would ask you to please leave a 5-star ranking, especially on Apple or Spotify. Super easy to scroll down and click the 5 stars. You don't even have to write a review, but it does help the visibility of the show quite a bit, because then Apple starts to promote it to other people. So we would really appreciate that. Definitely call in your boating stories, any other stories, boating werewolf, werewolf without boating, boating without werewolf. Any of those combinations work. And we will see you back here next time. Thank you very much, and we appreciate you listening.
Please be aware that Your Best True Story podcast cannot attest to the validity of any story contained within. Additionally, all podcast hosts have failed numerous IQ tests and been legally deemed idiots by the judicial branch of the state of Florida. Therefore, please seek second opinions from licensed attorneys, doctors, CPAs, and/or ventriloquists prior to leaving your job to hunt Bigfoot, dragging a stake through your sleeping spouse's heart due to vampiric suspicion, snipping, slicing, dicing, or gargling any substance, attempting to drive your automobile off of the flat earth, or attempting to overthrow any government over suspicion that they are lizard aliens. The Your Best True Story podcast does not purport to offer legal, financial, or gynecological advice. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Please wear your seatbelt at all times and keep your hands inside your own compartment. If there is a sudden loss of pressure, you do have our permission to scream. The Your Best True Story podcast takes no responsibility for divorce, bankruptcy, possession by an ancient demonic entity, or brain herpes. For everything else, we still take no responsibility, but we do feel very bad about it.
You got a crazy-ass true story to tell. It could be funny, or thrilling, or creepy as hell. And when you speak, surely none will make a sound. And the world's going breathless when your true story comes around. Oh, hear the crazy bullshit flying. Just one more maybe true story before we're dying. Yet be warned, surely not all stories will be treated the same. So don't blame us if your tale about Grandma's cookies is lame. The only way to ensure you could possibly win a buck is to make sure that story of yours don't suck. So instead of yawns, go ahead and tell us how that Bigfoot or werewolf drowned, and then hear the world go breathless when your true story comes around. You'll hear the crazy